Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the first EU STEM Coalition webinar. I hope that everyone can hear and see me okay. I see that already a lot of people are active in the chat, so if there are any issues with the audio or the video, just let me know and we'll try to fix it as we go along. So, welcome to this first webinar in what we hope will be a series. Before we dive into the presentations that we have planned for today, I will give a very brief introduction into the meeting program and what we're trying to achieve with today. And give a few housekeeping notes as well. So what is the objective of today? Well, basically we have built the meeting program around two main questions. And the first question is, how have the STEM platforms in the EU STEM Coalition Network responded to the COVID-19 crisis and all the corresponding measures? So we will have some presentations of success stories, some best practices, but we'll also look at a questionnaire that we did in our network. And we did, as some of you may have already seen, a series of articles on the response more focused on the program level. So we'll take a brief look at that. And then the second part of the meeting is focused on the question, what is going to be needed in the near and medium term future. So we'll look at that on the level of the platform, but we'll also talk a little bit about what we can do as a network collectively to respond to these new challenges. So this is today's meeting program. So the first part, as I already mentioned, is focused on how the STEM platforms have responded. Here I unfortunately have already my first housekeeping note, and that is that the second presentation that we had planned from the ZDE network in Germany, unfortunately the speaker has fallen ill, so he won't be able to give the presentation today, so we'll postpone that to a later version of this webinar. So what we'll do instead is that we will just have the two presentations, then we have a very short break in which we show a video of the ZDE network, and then we just continue with the program as planned. So then we'll move to the second part focused on what is needed. So finally, some very brief housekeeping notes. As many of you are already aware, I can see there's a chat function, a live chat. So if you have any questions for the speakers, please put them in the chat. My colleague Boudewijn is moderating the chat today, so we'll try to group the questions a little bit together and cover as many as we can within the time. And if you somehow don't have access to the chat, you can also send them directly via the info address that you see on the screen. And if we somehow don't get to your question, feel free to send them after to the same address, and then we'll connect you to the speakers. Yeah, so that's basically it. I hope it will be a very interactive session today. So use the chat, ask any questions that you may have at any moment, and we'll try to cover as many as possible. So that brings me to the first part of the program. And the first presentation will be given by Mrs. Silja Ase-Wolf from the Norwegian National Center for Science Recruitment, who will present the ENTER program for remote homework support in Norway. So let me switch to there we go. So Silja, you are on the camera right now, so go ahead.
Yes, I'll just share my screen with you and make sure that the sound setting is fine. No, just a few seconds.
Take your time, it's completely fine.
There's this small box I need to tick to make it right, and it's easy to forget. There. And there you go.
Perfect.
Do you see our nice logo screen?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. My name is Silje Wolf. I work at the National Center for STEM Recruitment here in Trondheim in Norway. Today I will share with you some of the experiences and reflections made through the establishment of a national digital platform for the ENTER program, which is a homework program. It is actually quite a comprehensive program during the years, So I also made an English summary that will be published on the website, so you can read more details there. I'll start today with a very brief introduction to this program, and then try to elaborate about some of the success criteria and experiences we made during this time, and then also a short outlook. The ENTER program, I can start with that, is funded by the Ministry of Education here in Norway to meet the increasing demand for STEM competence. Because there is really a mismatch or a gap of interest and motivation between the demand in the labor market and the career choices of our young, and especially the girls are underrepresented. We see that young people, they struggle to see the relevance of especially mathematics, but also other STEM subjects, and they show a low sense of achievement. And this has really become a bottleneck for further STEM studies for many. So we really need to challenge this view that STEM is for the brainy, it's not for me, it doesn't have room for creativity, and so on. So that's why our main objective in ENTER is to encourage and inspire youths facing a career choice to consider and pursue a further education and career within STEM. Our offer is given to junior high and high school students, mostly in the 10th or the last year of junior high. And we work with our objectives through something we call STEM training. The goal of the STEM training, I'll get back to that, is to provide the pupils with increased motivation and sense of achievement, with a special focus on mathematics. Also a more positive attitude towards STEM subjects, and to increase their career choice capability and STEM capital. And it's important for me to mention here that we really have a close attention to not pushing STEM or trying to affect their choices, but we work to widen their horizon and know, and show the well of opportunities and before they make their choice. The STEM training is a supplement to classroom teaching. It's supposed to be something different than what they have an experience in school. And we have STEM students studying at different universities, working as mentors and also teaching the students. They actually also run the local projects, forming an ENTER team present at campus. They provide the pupils with homework help, but they also often start the lessons with topical lectures on something that the pupils find interesting or tell them something about their life as students. We also have science experiments and demonstrations, quizzes, competitions, and other activities to make it more fun. We also have career nights where the students pitch different studies and also different career opportunities. And we gather all the pupils for Pupils Night with invited guests from working within STEM. They're often topical. For example, we can have space or engineers without borders invited. And the main message here is that STEM is relevant for everyone. Here you see the different locations that we have ENTER local projects. They're all located at local campuses. But we have a very far stretched country, so you can see there are some parts that we don't cover so well. So we also have a group called ENTER Digital, where pupils living far away from a campus can also attend. And last year, we had almost 4,300 pupils attending ENTER from 390 different schools in Norway. Before we continue, I will show you just a short video made from one of our mentors inviting you into the classroom.
Jeg heter Martine og jobber som mentor i Enter. Lurer du på hva vi gjør i en vanlig Enter-time? Bli med meg! Jeg heter Martine og jobber som mentor i Enter. Lurer du på hva vi gjør i en vanlig Enter-time? Bli med meg, så skal jeg vise deg!
Yes. And Enter, we get a lot of good feedback. It's very highly appreciated by both the students and the pupils attending. And I think some of the reasons why it works is that it's free and open to everyone. The mentors are highly skilled and have both passions and high qualifications in STEM subjects. They're close in age to the pupils. And we also have regular groups so that the pupils meet the same mentors at the same time every week. It's a good recruitment effect since we bring the pupils into campus and in many ways give them a glimpse into life as STEM students. And also, I must say, we do have a lot of fun. Every year, 4 times a year, we gather all the students working for Enter for coursing and also exchange of experience. And we teach them basic pedagogics, STEM didactics, project management. So I think it's also really a great experience for them to take on through their career. And we have a lot of emphasis on creating a good learning environment and a good social atmosphere. And I think that's one of our biggest success factors, actually. But during this spring, we had to replace all the normal Enter activities with virtual classrooms. We managed to have classrooms open every Monday to Thursday from 3 to 8 in the afternoon for 5 weeks. We had 587 pupils actively receiving homework help through this platform. And we also had more than 200 pupils attending something we called an inspirational lecture that we arranged in collaboration with Microsoft. And the theme here was an infection control app. This is actually much fewer pupils than we normally have through this same time in Enter. But still, I think we managed to reach some pupils that had not attended before. And actually, just a couple of days ago, I got this really long email of gratitude from a father of a son who had struggling with his mathematics and who had attended this digital offer through Enter. And just during those few weeks, he expressed that he had gone from really hating mathematics to understanding much more. His grades had gone up and he had actually decided to continue studying mathematics. And the father expressed this that it had been really fun to see that the engagement and the skills of those young mentors had almost rubbed off on his son. So that was very nice to read. When we started the national platform, we had some previous experience. As I mentioned, we have had Enter Digital for a couple of years. We have also arranged every year to prepare for the national exams for the graduates from junior high and high school, a couple of days with a digital platform that was similar. But as those of you who work with students probably also experience, the students are almost always ahead of us. So there were many various initiatives that were organized by the local projects, but saw that it was much more practical to collect them all in one digital platform to make it easier to organize and to facilitate seamless collaboration. So we did that, and we used Blackboard Collaborate Ultra as a common platform for everyone. The success criteria, as I see it from this process, is that it was good that we were out really early. I think we started just the week after lockdown, and to provide information and expectations that are really clear. We spent a lot of time making instructions, both written ones, but also filming. We had them enter students here in Trondheim to help us with that. And we kept a very close dialogue during this training phase. 3 good words, I think, going into such a process is to be available, to facilitate and provide continuous support. We had training rooms to make them really feel safe and comfortable using this platform. And as for Enter always, we try to be really positive and encouraging and to make it a playground for new experiences. And as always, we could never have succeeded with this without the wonderful work of our students. It's really a bless to work with these young people. Some experiences is that both we and the student find it really much harder to reach the pupils. I think there's many reasons to that. I must say I have also kids in the age that we aim to reach, and we saw that they've been really overloaded with digital lectures, meetings, hangouts, and it was like, yeah, they described us sitting in their room doing homework all day. So they were demotivated. There were also less subject assessment by the teachers, which also lowered the motivation, I think. But still, as exemplified by the email I showed you, I think we reached out to new groups. Pupils may be struggling socially or for other reasons not able to attend the normal Enter groups at the campus. But that it was challenging to keep good relations and follow up in the way that we normally do. So you lose also this relation with the pupils. And also, yeah, we had more mentors per pupils than we do in normal Enter setting. Yes, yeah, and a short outlook. We see that it gives new opportunities for homeschooling and follow-up services. If you have pupils that have long-term illness or for other reason cannot attend the normal Enter offer. We now have all local projects equipped with drawing tablets and skilled in using this teaching platform. They're also much more familiar with it. So we see already that there's a need to extend our digital program. The last couple of years we had it here in Trondheim, but from the fall we also will start up a group in Oslo. We have had some experience with streaming events, still have a lot to learn, but I think it could be good to do that more often. And overall, I think digital communication is really more accepted and feels safer to use. For me, as a national coordinator working all over Norway, I was going to conclude that it's made my job easier this spring, but I think I'll rephrase that and say it's been really interesting, fun, learned a lot of new things. Yeah, so it's been really good. Yes. That was everything from me. So now, please,
thank
you
you.
Have some questions.
Yeah, thank you, Celia, for the presentation. That's very interesting. Let me put myself back into the screen. I'm actually going to put you in the video. Could you please stay on the line for a moment if we have any questions from the audience? There we go. So.
Yeah,
sorry, I'm looking at the moderators. Not a huge amount of questions. I had one myself. You mentioned a few times that the role of the students was really crucial in, well, first of all, setting up this digital version of the Enter program quickly, but also in general, just to run the program. So I was wondering, like, how do you recruit the students through this program, and are they getting any kind of compensation, like maybe study points or money even? Like, how does that work in this program?
Yes. There are a little bit small differences between the local campuses related to their size and so on. But like here in Trondheim, where we have a really large project with more than 600 pupil places, we have a leader group, and they actually do all that recruitment for themselves. And here it's a really popular work to have, because they are actually paid for yes, a few hours every week, but I think many of them also work a lot voluntarily because they think it's fun. But they are indeed paid. And the most successful projects, I think it's the students' project. It's not mine. I only support them and give them tools and train them, so they run the project themselves.
Okay, perfect. Well, there's another question. And the question is, how is the cooperation between the universities and the schools established? And is the age of the pupils important in this program?
Yes. Some areas, again, it can be challenging, and it takes time to establish good relations with the schools. But now this has been going on for some years, so we manage in most areas to have a really close and good collaboration. And we're actually in that position that the schools are waiting for the enter students to come, because it's a great help also for the teachers, because it gives the students something else. So yeah, we really have worked hard to establish long-term collaboration with key personnel at the schools. And we have, in the recruitment phase, it's important for us that the students actually get into the classroom and meet the pupils, to have them attend.
Yeah.
That was half of the question, was it? What
Yeah,
was
so
the other one?
that covers basically how the cooperation between the universities and the schools is established. The other question was, is the age of the pupils important? Is there any specific age group that you're targeting here?
Yes. It shows that it's a very steep fall in motivation during these last years of high school, and also in this transition from junior high to high school. So that's why we chose this age group. We also have younger students, but most of them is the graduates from junior high and the high school students, because this is also where they choose what kind of math they want to continue with. As you saw in the movie, I didn't comment, but there you said if you're hesitant about choosing T mathematics, and that's a theoretical mathematics that is really required for most STEM studies. So we try to encourage them to choose this. Instead of more practical mathematics, which excludes many student study opportunities.
Okay. See, I think this will be the last. This will be the last question that we will take, and then we'll move on to the next presentation. But what two? now they start coming the questions. But so one follow-up question is, what is the role of the teachers in this program? Maybe you can say something briefly about that. And then the second question is the government financially supporting the project?
Yes. Okay, I'll take the second question first, because that's easier, and the answer is yes. We get support and funding from the Ministry of Education to run this program. The second, the collaboration with the teachers, is that the only thing we need them for is really to let us into the schools in a busy school day. But we do not normally collaborate if it's not really necessary, because we meet the pupils here at campus after school in the afternoon, which is not part of their normal school time.
Okay. Well, one very final last question that I overlooked here, and that is whether so how do you track students after they finish the program? Do you do any kind of tracking, maybe to assess their decision making after they participate in the program, or is there no follow-up with the students?
Yes, we have pupil service with thousands of the pupils participating everywhere. We try to track this. It's quite challenging, as you probably know, but we see, I excluded that slide. But more than half of them actually say to us that they will continue with STEM studies, and more than, I think, 76% experience increased motivation for STEM and see new aspects. So it's really a successful program in that case. But we cannot track them, others that we can try to see the effect nationally every year and hope that we make a difference.
All right. Well, thank you again for a very interesting presentation. I think this program is super interesting, especially when I hear the stories of my colleagues around me. A lot of them who have small children, their number one complaint in this COVID-19 crisis was always that they have to combine the working from home with the homeschooling element, and I think this program takes part of that work away from the parents. So I think that's really great. I see there's still questions coming in. We will have to move on to the next presentation, otherwise we won't have enough time. So thank you very much, Celia. I will take you off screen right now and we'll move on to the next part of the presentation.
I can write my email in the chat and you can just send them to me if you have more questions also.
Yes, and I will send it around with the meeting documents and also a link to the video that you showed in case anyone wants to see that again.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, so that brings us to the second presentation of today. Like I already said, unfortunately, the second one that we had planned was from the ZDE network in Germany. That one we'll have to wait for the next session that we do. So we jump straight into the presentation of Mr. Carr, who works at STEM Learning, which is a STEM platform in the United Kingdom, and he will talk a little bit more about the continuous professional development and teacher training actions that his organization implements in the United Kingdom.
Okay, thank you. Good morning.
One second, Chris. Sorry, there we go. Now you're on screen. Go for it.
Okay, thank you, and good morning. Just 1 second while I just share my presentation. There we go. Hopefully you can all see that screen.
Yes, it's in the screen.
Okay, that's great. Okay, yeah, so to introduce myself, my name's Chris. I'm the network educational lead for STEM Learning. My email address is there for reference. So like the previous presentation, if you have any questions that I don't get around to answering, then please do drop me an email. My presentation really is focused on how, as an organisation, we've gone about the very rapid development of remote CPD. This was a new venture for us, and it was a direct response to lockdown in the COVID crisis. First of all, before we actually get into that, just a little bit of background about who we are. So to explain, we are a long-standing organisation. We're not for profit. It was established in 2005, and we've got the vision of providing a world-leading STEM education for all young people across the UK. We're funded by the UK government, by the Department for Education, also by various employers such as Rolls-Royce, IBM, BAE Systems, BP, various different STEM employers, and also educational charities such as Welcome and Gatsby. And we work primarily with school and college teachers and lecturers. Our main aim is to provide continuing professional development, or CPD, for teachers. And by doing that, hopefully, STEM education for young people. To do that, we do have an extensive network that is comprised of, first of all, our centre for STEM education in York. We have a residential centre which is available to deliver CPD for teachers on an extended basis between 2 to 9 days in length, so they get a very intensive experience. But we've also got an extensive network of good and outstanding schools and colleges which can deliver the CPD more locally. We're also the delivery partner, I should say, in a consortium with Raspberry Pi and the British Computing Society to form the National Centre for Computing Education. Okay, a little bit about who we work with. So in addition to the individuals that I've already mentioned, we also provide continuing professional development, CPD, for more informal educators. These would typically be leaders of community groups. And we also coordinate the STEM Ambassador Program. This is a network of over 30,000 volunteers from academia and industry that work with and support teachers. Due to the current circumstances, we're also supporting young people directly through quite an extensive collection of home learning resources, activities and advice. But the main focus that I want to talk about today really is our CPD program. So unsurprisingly, the COVID-19 crisis has forced many changes upon our methods of delivery. Prior to the crisis, our CPD was delivered by three main methods, and they're illustrated on this slide. So, number one, regional CPD. This is our network of good and outstanding schools and colleges that are spread throughout the UK and deliver CPD usually in bite-sized chunks. So between half a day to a full day in length, sometimes delivered as twilight sessions, maybe an hour and a half sessions at the end of the day. Number two, residential CPD. So this is at the National STEM Learning Centre, a purpose-built building in York in the UK, where teachers can come and stay and experience a very intensive experience of CPD, anywhere between 2 to 9 days in length. And lastly, we had online CPD. This was free and it's delivered by the Future Learn platform. And I should mention that the online CPD is fully automated in the sense that you book onto the course and you then have a pre-prescribed set of programs that you work through with some interactive forums that you can join with other participants. When the COVID-19 crisis first hit, we had to revise extensively how we went about delivering CPD, and in particular, modes 1 and modes 2, the regional and the residential, involved face-to-face interaction and delivery. So we had to make a very rapid response to develop CPD that could be delivered in a true remote fashion. And this is distinct from online CPD, in that remote CPD would feature live interactive sessions with live presenters. So a little bit about the transition to remote CPD. How did we develop this program? Well, this happened in a very short time frame. Between the 23rd of March, which is when we first went into lockdown, through to the 23rd of April, a time period of 1 month, we developed 26 new science courses. So these were genuinely new courses. They weren't just repurposing courses that we already had. They were developed so that teachers could access the CPD that they wanted, that addressed the particular needs of the teachers at this time. And these courses were fully subsidised by the UK government, by the DFE. The courses were designed to cover primary, secondary and post-16, that is all the educational phases, and also the different career stages of teachers, from newly qualified teachers or even teachers that are going through training and haven't yet got qualified teacher status yet, all the way through to heads of department, middle leaders, so that we covered our complete audience. The courses that we developed were designed to support with subject knowledge, with pedagogy and with curriculum design. These were some of the main priorities of teachers and training teachers, supporting them to enter the profession. And on completion of each course, participants would be eligible or are eligible for a STEM certificate. So we do offer some accreditation having completed the remote CPD. And this is useful in order to build their professional profile, to celebrate their achievements, and it can be used to support their appraisal and performance management targets at school. On to the development of the remote CPD and a bit more detail on this. The course titles for these 26 science courses in particular were selected and developed so they'd have a lifespan beyond the current circumstances. We didn't want to develop something that would only have a very limited shelf life and a limited appeal. It was really important to ensure that these courses could be adapted in the future to become part of what we would call a blended model. So we can combine the remote CPD with face-to-face delivery a little bit later on, hopefully once the restrictions start to ease. The development of the CPD involved a workshop approach. So we would assemble a team of maybe 4 to 5 experts in the field. These will be our own internal staff, plus our network of consultants that we can use, and some teachers that are currently practicing in the classroom, to help the development and the initial scoping of the ideas for each course and what the outcomes will be. And then different duties will be assigned within that group to actually go ahead and write the course and develop it. The way in which we've developed the courses include both remote delivery and participant-led episodes. So, for example, a typical course would break down into maybe 5 distinct episodes, each episode being 1 hour or so in length. And some of those episodes would be direct delivery with a live presenter, but some of those episodes would be participant-led tasks that they complete independently by themselves, okay, and then submit their tasks to a community group. So they would have some sort of interaction via an online forum. The platform that we used was Adobe Connect, or is Adobe Connect, and it was chosen because it could operate with low bandwidth. This was important in ensuring accessibility for all participants and for quite large participant numbers. We also chose Adobe Connect because it has some teaching tools available. So, for example, you can put participants into breakout rooms for discussions. You can use some simple online polls and surveys to gauge participants' thoughts when you're presenting the CPD. But it does have some disadvantages. It does have a limited capacity with video capability. So most of our presentations would not involve any sort of video or any detailed animations. The presentations have to be kept fairly basic. Each course instance was supported by both a facilitator and an administrator to help deal with the technical issues. The facilitator can therefore concentrate on delivering the course content, and the administrator is available to pick up any technical issues that some of the participants may have. Every course was quality assured by a member of the STEM Learning Education team. So the first run of these courses, we had members of our staff sat on every one of these sessions to make sure that things went smoothly and that we could learn lessons if things weren't quite as we wanted them to be. And I should also say that there was very rapid and intensive training of facilitators that was provided during this period of development, with ongoing support and further training. And what this has meant is that our partner organisations, typically our schools and colleges that deliver CPD for us, they have now been upskilled and are now confident to be able to deliver this remote CPD themselves in the future. On to some challenges. So some access issues and technical barriers, as you might expect with any sort of online or virtual platform. Most of those issues have been dealt with and certainly fielded very efficiently by our course administrators that sit in on the sessions and our team of dedicated support staff. We do have a large number of support staff that work behind the scenes to make sure that things do run smoothly and we can address issues where they arise. Our support staff have also undergone quite intensive training because this was new to them too. So they have received training on the Adobe Connect platform. As we start to increase the number of participants on courses, as we did due to demand, it was clear that we needed at least 2 facilitators to help support. As soon as you start getting very large numbers of participants attending the courses, it becomes very difficult to monitor the text chat and present at the same time. So really, when you start getting numbers beyond maybe about 30 to 40 participants, you really do need 2 facilitators to be there simultaneously. One to field the text chat and one to present. The remote CPD does have a different style of delivery, and this does take some getting used to. It does have some restrictions. So, for example, the presentations have to be prepared well in advance, and you can't easily adapt things as you are actually presenting, as you might do if you was face-to-face with participants. Communication in a remote environment is a challenge. It's difficult to pick up on facial and physical clues that people's body language might give you in a face-to-face environment. So it can feel a little bit disconnected as you're delivering. And networking is quite difficult. Although we do have the breakout room functionality of Adobe Connect, it is difficult to really get the proper networking that goes on with face-to-face interactions. And it is very difficult to cover the practical aspects of science. So anything that involves hands-on training, obviously with apparatus and so on, is rather difficult to get across. Participants don't have the opportunity to actually trial pieces of apparatus or get used to setting up equipment. The limited functionality of the platform could therefore be described as both an advantage and a disadvantage. It does restrict what can be done live, but the advantage of this is that it has focused us really in terms of our development. It's made it clear that there is still a lot of learning that can take place independently or as part of a community group during the participant-led sessions. And it's forced best practice and really focused what we actually include in our CPD and our presentations to make sure that it really is used to best effect. In terms of the benefits, the clear benefit of remote CPD is accessibility. The accessibility for participants and facilitators. The CPD can be accessed from anywhere, enabling you to continue your professional development journey. There are no barriers in terms of travel. The CPD can be broken down into 1-hour sessions, which make it easier to fit around other commitments. So therefore, there's more time spent learning and less time spent traveling for a face-to-face session at a particular location. The teachers can attend these courses without seeking line manager approval. These sessions were developed to run at various times that will be accessible. And the first run of these courses was entirely subsidised by the UK government, so teachers could attend at any point that suited. The community groups and the online interactions did allow networking to occur across a wide range of schools. So when these courses are run, potentially anybody from the UK could access those courses. So it has put together a much more diverse audience on some of those community groups. Much easier to secure an expert facilitator to deliver the courses because they don't have to travel. And there's some creative ways in which you can use facilitators. So, for example, you could bring 2 or more expert facilitators together to deliver one session. So, for example, if you had a physics course that you was running, you could maybe bring in a mathematics expert at a certain point to make a particular point in the presentation that you maybe would struggle to do or to secure their services otherwise in face-to-face interactions. Also allows some creativity in bringing in outside speakers. So, for example, our STEM ambassadors, our volunteers from academia and industry, we can bring them into the CPD and use them to highlight the links between the curriculum and employment and industry. Another advantage is that the text chat can be captured and effectively can become a resource after the event. If you open the text chat discussion to the participants and ask them a question about what resources might be useful to address a particular area of the curriculum, for example, they will all list various examples. They will post hyperlinks and links to websites that have these resources. And that text chat transcript can then be saved and shared with everybody that was on that course. So that's been really powerful and has been really useful. And overall, the remote CPD is generally much more cost effective. It's been relatively straightforward to develop. It's easier to bring together people that are involved with the development of the course. It's much easier to quality assure because anybody can drop into those remote sessions. So there have been some clear advantages in terms of development. In terms of demand, we was really pleased with the level of demand that existed for these courses, and quite surprised by just how rapid the uptake was. Of those 26 science courses, 13 of them, half of them, were 2-week length duration courses, and we scheduled those 6 times. 13 of them, the other half, were 1-week long duration courses, and we scheduled those 12 times. We were averaging bookings of around 150 bookings per day for these courses, and we had a high of 399 bookings in one single day. We had to increase the capacity, so we had to increase the cap on the courses for attendance from 25 to 50 participants per course, which gives you an idea of the level of demand that there was. And we had to schedule 17 additional instances that would run between end of April through to end of the summer term. The impact has been immense and really positive. We've had so far, this data is correct as of Monday, we've had 3,859 bookings that have been made, and of those we've got 2,938 teachers that have booked and attended that CPD and are now being certificated. 96% of the participants have reported that the course quality was good or very good, which is testament to the level of quality assurance that we put into the development of the courses. And 98% of participants have agreed or strongly agreed that it will have an impact on future practice. That quotation there is from one of our courses, one of our primary courses, and it's typical of the sort of feedback that we're getting from the participants. So the CPD has been really clear, very interactive, so it's not just a lecture that's being delivered online. It does have the interactive components of the CPD and excellent ideas to use. As we move towards the future, what we're thinking of really is moving towards a blended approach. So we will still use remote CPD, and it will become very much part of our overall offer. We will likely mix remote CPD with more traditional face-to-face CPD as we move forwards. This allows us a provision of a much more flexible model. So we're minimising the participant time out of the classroom. And certainly as we move into the autumn term, that time is going to be at a premium. We expect teachers to be needed very much in the classroom. The face-to-face traditional CPD is probably going to be used when it is most useful. So, for example, where networking or face-to-face discussions are really needed. Some of our leadership courses probably benefit a lot from face-to-face interactions, and of course the practical-based courses or the practical-based CPD that we can give on practical equipment and apparatus and lessons, that is probably best face-to-face. It will become a partly charged product as we move forwards. The government has subsidised the initial run of remote CPD, but as we head into September, we will be making a small charge for this CPD, but again, it will be subsidised to some extent. And that's the end of my presentation. So thank you for listening, and I'll hand back.
Thank you very much, Chris. That was very interesting. I'm going to put you on the screen actually, because we have some questions that I hope that you're willing to answer. We received one via email that was quite similar as the one in the chat, so I'll put those two together. And the question was, well, the first question is your CPD offered to individual teachers only, or is it also targeted at entire teams of teachers or schools even that make it maybe mandatory for their teachers to partake in this? And then the second question that came in via the chat was again about this voluntary nature. Like, are the participants coming into this completely voluntarily, or is there some kind of nationwide incentive to involve everyone?
Okay, so on the first question regarding individual teachers or large groups of teachers, the answer to that is probably both. We work both at the level of individuals, so we have a website where we advertise and promote these courses that are available, and we use our social media feeds and also our extensive contacts to make sure that that teachers know about these courses. So individual teachers can book onto the courses without direct involvement of line managers, for example. Equally, we do have a number of programs where we're involved with large organisations. So in the UK, we have multi-academy trusts, large collections of schools that we work with, and we often work with their executive teams through various different programs. But that allows us then to approach those teams and make them aware of what the offer is. Throughout the whole crisis, we've really tried to make sure that what we're doing is serving the needs of as many teachers as possible at different career stages, and really addressing what we think that the priorities will be for them. So the answer to that first question really is that we can serve both. On the second question, could you just remind me the details of the second question, please? Yeah, so again, the answer to that is both. It can be entirely voluntary, and we do have excellent uptake. We often find that when participants have experienced one of our courses previously, they will come back to us and attend further courses because they know that the quality of what we provide is good. Equally, in terms of incentives, we offer various, or we're involved with various programs throughout the UK that directly support clusters of schools. We have what we call enthused partnerships, which are basically collections of schools that work together and go on a CPD journey, a professional learning journey together. And certainly as part of their program, it would be an incentive for them to engage with CPD. So there is an incentive in that sense. Because we are funded by the government, the UK government has promoted our courses in terms of a list of places where teachers can go to receive CPD and further support.
Okay, I have to apologize, by the way. My mic was off when I repeated the question to you, but I hope the answer was still clear to everyone. So more questions are coming in. It's basically building on the previous question. Someone is asking. So it's a bit unclear how teacher training, continuous professional development is organized in the UK. So the question here is, are you cooperating directly with public bodies, or is this more like an assignment that you get, but is the distance between you and the public bodies bigger than doing it directly for them with a strict mandate? And is continuous professional development an obligation for teachers to partake in every year for teachers in the UK?
Sure. Okay, so going back to how we're funded by a combination of the UK government and employers and educational charities. So we certainly do have some mandate from the UK government about exactly which areas we need to be addressing. So, for example, a lot of our CPD is focused very much on things like subject knowledge, pedagogy and leadership, and those reflect the priorities of the UK government with CPD. However, we also have mandates that come from our other funders. So from some of our employers, for example, they may fund some of these partnerships of schools that work together. And we may have a particular focus for CPD that reflects what that employer needs. We also reflect the needs of some of the educational charities, such as the Wellcome Trust that funds us. So our mandate probably comes from various different sources depending on our funding stream. I think does that answer your question?
Yeah, more or less. I think the question was mainly focused on well, first of all, is this an obligation for teachers to participate in, and The second part, I think you answered very well, the relation between you and the person who is funding the program.
Yeah, I don't think there's any sort of, in terms of an obligation for CPD, teachers are required to go through continuous professional development in the UK. They are required to keep themselves up to speed with current educational developments. That is part of their teacher standards, the qualities that are expected of teachers, and that is mandated by the UK government, by the Department for Education. What we do is align ourselves to those mandates and to those teaching standards. So you'll find that most of our programs are linked or mapped directly to what those teaching standards are, and the advent of any new teaching frameworks that are produced by the UK government.
Yeah. So okay. So there's some kind of like a soft steering mechanism there for the government to influence what you're doing. Yeah. A lot of more questions are coming in. Unfortunately, in the interest of time, we'll have to leave it at that. Especially if I read the questions, I see they're really quite complex as well. So we'll postpone those till after the meeting. I'll forward them to you, and I hope that you'll be able to answer them via email to some of these people that ask questions.
That's fine.
So thank you very much again for a very interesting presentation, and I will now take you off the screen, and we'll move on to the next part of the program. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, that brings us to the end of the first part of the program. Again, thank you very much for your attention. We'll have a very short 3-minute break in which I will show a video from the ZDI network that was originally included in the presentations. After that, we'll have about 20 minutes left for the second part of the program. So I hope that you all will stick around. So see you in a moment.
Bei uns trifft Zukunft Innovation. Wir sind ZDI NRW. Seit fast 15 Jahren fördern und begeistern wir den naturwissenschaftlichen und technischen Nachwuchs in NRW und vernetzen Akteure vor Ort. Jedes Jahr erreichen wir gemeinsam mit unseren Partnern rund 300.000 junge Menschen und bringen ihnen die Vielfalt der Mathematik, Informatik, Naturwissenschaften und Technik näher. Rund 45% aller Teilnehmenden sind weiblich.
Gerade Frauen im MINT-Bereich oder Mädchen im MINT-Bereich sind ja noch immer eine Seltenheit. Und es ist halt einfach schön zu sehen, dass sie auch Spaß daran haben und das gerne machen.
Durch die breit gefächerten und modernen Kursangebote führen wir die Schülerinnen und Schüler an gesellschaftlich relevante Themen mit MINT-Bezug heran. Dabei zeigen wir ihnen Wege in zukunftsreiche Ausbildungsberufe und Studiengänge. Ob Urban Gardening, Multicopterbau oder die virtuelle Realität. Wir sind immer am Puls der Zeit. Mit mehr als 4.500 Partnern aus Wirtschaft, Schulen, Hochschulen und Politik sind wir die größte Gemeinschaftsoffensive unserer Art in Europa.
Es ist auch eine spannende Geschichte, weil man ja auch durch das Thema Jugendarbeit oder Jugendliche in Arbeit bringen oder Technikinteresse wecken, eine Menge Möglichkeiten da halt hat. Und dann kann man gemeinsam, denke ich, mehr erreichen, als wenn man jetzt hier irgendwie einzeln was macht.
ZDI ist in allen Kreisen und Städten in NRW vertreten. Zusammen mit über 40 Netzwerken und rund 70 Schülerlaboren begleiten wir junge Menschen entlang der Bildungskette, vom Kindergarten bis zur Ausbildungs- oder Studienwahl. Durch unsere praxisnahen Angebote lernen Teilnehmende die realen Herausforderungen und Chancen des Arbeitsmarktes frühzeitig kennen und werden so bestens auf die digitale Zukunft vorbereitet.
Das hat mir sehr viel Spaß gemacht, weil ich gesehen habe, so was die Technik mittlerweile kann. Und habe seitdem immer jedes Jahr eigentlich kontinuierlich an den Kursen teilgenommen, um herauszufinden, wo ich eigentlich hin möchte.
Die regional angesiedelten Netzwerke initiieren und koordinieren die lokalen Kursangebote in enger Zusammenarbeit mit Partnern aus Wissenschaft und Wirtschaft vor Ort. Die vielen regionalen ZDI-Netzwerke bringen ihre Erfahrungen in die NRW-weite Gemeinschaft ein und so entsteht ein überregionaler Wissensaustausch. Die ZDI-Community. Mit unserer Arbeit tragen wir zur langfristigen Sicherung des Nachwuchses im naturwissenschaftlich-technischen Bereich bei. Hierdurch stärken wir nachhaltig die Innovationsfähigkeit von Wissenschaft und Wirtschaft in NRW. Die Förderung jedes Talentes liegt uns am Herzen. Daher setzen wir uns besonders für Chancengleichheit ein. Gemeinsam forschen, verstehen und Zukunft gestalten. Das ist ZDI.
So, welcome back everyone. I hope everyone had a chance to grab quickly a cup of coffee or tea, or maybe go to the bathroom. We have now arrived at the second part of today's program, and this part is focused on the question, what is needed in the medium and the long term, and how can the EU STEM Coalition, or how can we collectively as a network help to mitigate the impact of the new challenges that have emerged after the outbreak of COVID-19. And in this part of the presentation, I will first take a quick look at the questionnaire. So to give a bit of context here, we held a questionnaire among 35 organizations in our network. This was by no means a scientific questionnaire. It was just to get a general impression of what the experience has been and what the expectations are of the organizations that are in our network. So I'll show some of the results on the next slides. And then I'll talk a little bit more about what we have planned for the EU STEM Coalition in the coming months and years, and what we can potentially change to respond to these new challenges. So first, the questionnaire. We started it with some very general questions about what the impact has been so far on all the organizations. Well, I don't think it will surprise anyone that pretty much everyone was affected. So more than 90% report that they either had to put all their activities on hold, or they were forced to introduce new or changed activity formats. And a similar amount also responded proactively by launching new activities specifically focused on responding to this new situation. So you can think of remote learning, digital teacher training, webinars, and so on. We just saw two very good examples of that, I think. And then finally, we asked how the organizations rate the success of their response. And here we can see quite a positive image, because around 70% rates their response either good or very good, as you can see in the graph at the bottom there. So then we asked a little bit about the challenges that the organizations are experiencing right now. And here I think we can see basically two things happening in these circumstances. And that first, there's already an effect of the COVID-19 crisis causing financial uncertainty. Well, I should say though that financial uncertainty is actually quite common when it comes to STEM programs, because STEM programs, or at least the types of programs that are implemented by national STEM platforms, they have very long running times, and this is always a challenge because you're going over government cycles and so on. So it's not entirely surprising, but it's still a very high number of organizations that responded that they are already experiencing financial uncertainty because of all of this. And then I think the second thing that we can take away here is that the COVID-19 has an effect of the engagement of key stakeholders. So you can think of schools, you can think of companies. These are all very important in the way that we implement as STEM platforms these programs. And COVID-19 obviously has caused a big shift in the priorities of all these stakeholders, and even of the government itself. As you can see, that's the fourth bar right there. If this is a little bit too small to read, we will distribute some kind of small report after the meeting. This is just to get a general idea of what's happening right now in our partner organizations. For the second graph, I'll take myself out for a moment. We asked, what do you expect to be the biggest challenges in the medium-term future, so in the next 1 to 3 years? And here we see a slightly different picture. Again, ensuring sufficient engagement of schools and companies came out as the one that was selected most. So that really, I think, is highlighted as the core challenge of COVID-19. Then the forced introduction of new activity models. Well, we just heard some success stories, but obviously this is a difficult process, and But this may also be something where we as a network can have an added value. We talk a little bit more about that on the next slides. And then finally, the funding issue again came out here as over 40%. So then finally, we asked some questions about how the EU STEM Coalition can provide better support. Let me put myself back. Can provide some better support to the platforms in our network. Again, I just put one graph. We asked multiple questions. And surprisingly, the number one request was to participate more in virtual events. So this is definitely something we're going to be looking into. And then the second two most selected answers were both related to forming partnerships, international partnerships in the development of new approaches. And I think, again, this is something where as a network, we can have really an added value in the formation of these partnerships and hopefully shortening the learning curves a little bit by relying on examples that have already proven themselves in different contexts. So what have we planned as a network for the coming months, and how are we planning to help, basically? Well, this crisis for us came at a little bit of an awkward timing in the sense that that we just established the priorities for the upcoming planning period, and to get a bit of an idea, this is what that looked like. So we had identified some strategic tracks and some key initiatives. But on the plus side, I think that a lot of the initiatives that we had already identified as important have become even more urgent under these new circumstances. So I will not go over each one of them. I just want to list three main takeaways, you could say. And the first one is that best practice sharing is more important than ever. I think this is logical. Obviously, everyone is now forced to look into new activity models that we have less experience with, and here we can learn a lot from countries who are maybe just a few months ahead or have some positive experiences, or maybe even infrastructure that can be upskilled outside of the country. And of course, these practices will become increasingly digital, so we will have to look into that as well. So the second takeaway is that we'll have to find new ways of providing direct support as a network. So prior to this crisis, we really did a lot via so-called task force meetings, which involved people going from one organization to the other, really direct expert support. That's now a lot more difficult. So we'll have to look into new solutions for that. And actually, we're already doing that. To name one example, just last Friday, we had our first fully digital task force meeting for the region of Brittany in France. There were around 15 organizations involved, and several partners from our network presented their programs digitally as a first step in the development of a region-wide cooperation initiative for school-company partnerships in the Brittany region. And that meeting was actually very successful. I mean, we already spoke a little bit about technical issues that you have, but it didn't really affect the outcome. So we're very happy with that, and we'll continue to improve it. And of course, if we are less able to travel to places, to give presentations, we have to make sure that our web-based support infrastructure is also continuously improved. So to give a very small introduction in what that could look like, here I put the EU STEM Coalition website on the slide. Like, one of the things that we're doing right now is to develop more high-quality profiles of the programs that are most requested for task forces. So I just put the JetNet program here for my own organization. So these are all structured in a fixed way. So we'll have some information about reach, impact, budget, and funding model. You also find background documents, so impact studies. So everything basically to get a head start in the development of a task force meeting. And we're doing a similar thing with monitoring instruments, and there we are focusing specifically on the regional context. So for example, if you are interested in what the indicators in the baseline study of the Asturias region looks like, we'll have some kind of like cover summary for that. And finally, we're doing it with strategies as well, because obviously one of the main outcomes that's being targeted is to have some kind of national or regional strategy in place. So we want to have some kind of catalog of all the strategies that are already there, and then again specifically focused on the strategies that involve some kind of triple helix cooperation, some kind of pact between industry, government, and education providers. So other things that we're currently implementing are the so-called task force dossiers. So this is more to give an insight in what the effect of certain support measures is. So here I put the dossier of the pilot program that we helped develop in the Basque Country that's currently being launched. So you'll find some basic information. You'll find a timeline with links to all the relevant reports and key events, and again some background documents on that relate to that specific action. So so this is definitely one of our key priorities, to continue to improve that infrastructure. So then the final takeaway is that we, as a network, will have to broaden the scope of our network. And I put two examples on the slide here. As a network, we have typically been focused on schools education and then higher education, but of course, many of the STEM platforms in our network are also implementing, for example, large-scale programs in vocational education and training. And we see that some of these topics also are getting a lot of momentum on the European level. So we have this new Centers of Vocational Excellence initiative. And on a platform level, we already see this interaction. So for example, in this Centers of Vocational Excellence initiative, there was a lot of interaction between my organization and the support that we give to the Centers of Vocational Excellence in the Netherlands as a STEM platform, and how that relates to the EU level support instrument that's currently being developed by the European Commission. So even this week we got a letter from the commissioner, basically talking about from Commissioner Smith, basically talking about the future role of that network and how we can work together in that. And I think as a network of STEM platforms, we can really again have a key added value here, because one of the things that we realize in the support that we give in the Netherlands to these Centers of Vocational Excellence is that the main challenge that they are having when they want to make a partnership around a certain sector or a certain theme with similar Centers of Vocational Excellence outside of their country is to find these partners. And I think as STEM platforms, we are really well positioned to guide that process and to make sure that the most optimal partnerships are being formed. And then a second example that I put on the slide are the so-called hybrid teachers. Well, hybrid teachers are basically people that work in industry and then part-time as a teacher. This is viewed as a solution for teacher shortages in STEM, and then again specifically in STEM vocational education and training. At the moment, various countries are testing different formats of hybrid teachers on a pilot basis. So prior to the crisis, we were preparing what's called a policy experimentation project. Unfortunately, the three ministries that were involved in this particular project had to withdraw because of the urgency of what had to be done in response to COVID-19. But the topic of hybrid teachers, I think, is still very urgent. Teacher shortages in STEM is one of the key challenges that is currently experienced in a lot of different EU member states. And on top of that, we see that teachers are often a very aging population of teachers. So that will probably become much worse in the near future. So this is definitely one of those topics that we haven't really looked at a lot in the past, but that we should now take into our scope to make sure that we're doing everything we can on all fronts. So that basically brings me to the end of the second part of the meeting. Thank you very much for your attention. I'm taking one last look at the question list to see if there are any last minute questions. Okay, there is a question that I have some trouble interpreting it. Okay, so if I understand this correctly, the question here is what we can do as a network. Can we basically upscale a program that exists in Norway, beyond Norway, via the EU STEM Coalition to other countries as well? So apologies if this was not really the question, but I'll do my best to answer that. Well, I think this is actually what we will be doing more in the near future. We saw it in the questionnaire. There's apparently a lot of willingness to engage into these international partnerships to develop new actions, and I think if you can base them on models that have already proven themselves, that's a bonus. I think the second part of this is that since so many of these things are now being implemented digitally, a lot of infrastructure is being developed that may be upscaled or replicated as well. So that could be another added value of doing it that way. I see some more questions in. Yeah. So so I think we'll definitely support that. We see a lot of willingness in the network to develop these partnerships, perhaps even as EU-funded initiatives. If we want to take into account the uncertainty of funding as well, it can be helpful sometimes to have a bit of a more diversified portfolio. So we'll look into giving more support for that. Yeah, I think that was the last question. So thanks everyone for your attention during this webinar. I hope it was useful to you. It was a very first time for us. I really like the suggestion from Chris to have an administrator on the side who takes care of all the technical issues, because that's a little bit distracting, but I hope it was still very useful for everyone. If you have any follow-up questions, feel free to contact me directly. I can also put your questions through to the speakers that we had today. And of course, we will publish the presentations and the videos that we saw today also on our website in a meeting report. So thank you very much and enjoy the rest of your day.